Welcome back to the BSD YouTube show. As always, your host, Patrick Herbler, welcoming you to a special Halloween edition of the Lecture Diaries YouTube show. Who would have thought that we would be here? You know, the week leading up to the Ohio State game, our main focus is on coaching searches and our stupid Halloween costumes. Tim, Jarrett, welcome back. Nice little bye week for us. I got to say that was refreshing to just not really care about Penn State for a week, but we're back to it. On today's show, we're going to be talking, Ohio State, previewing that game a little bit, seeing what, if anything, Penn State can do, and then we'll talk some coaching search stuff as well. Let's just jump right into the Ohio State thing. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about this game this week? Because I'm actually going. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I'm going to the game. I made a bad decision when Penn State was 3-0 to buy my plane ticket, and I am now going to the game. It's just a different feeling than how it's been in the past. So where are you guys at with like your excitement level for watching this Penn State team take on the number one team in the country?
I'm a 2. The only reason I'm a 2, I think, is just like seeing those two uniforms together just will kind of give me that quick instinctual feeling of, a game I typically be excited for. But yeah, I'm kind of thinking this is going to be more of a game that, we kind of have to watch and kind of make it through rather than something I'm, really anticipating and excited to sit down and spend 3.5 hours my Saturday.
I put it at a 3. More out of morbid curiosity, but also I'm curious. I am genuinely curious though to see how, and we'll get into this about how, what's this new look offense that was being kept from the media behind closed doors the last couple of weeks, and how does the team look now that Terry Smith's had a couple of weeks to settle in as the interim head coach? Because the firing of Franklin happened about 4 days before they had to leave for Iowa City. And it was just a real scramble for him to try and get settled in and have to coach the team that's following Saturday. So, there's some genuine curiosity and there's just some morbid curiosity as to, how bad it could potentially get.
Yeah, that is one of the interesting things with and we'll talk about when we get into our coaching search stuff, right? Florida has opened, LSU has opened. LSU has a bye week this coming week, which, nice for their coach to basically just get like a free week of practice to break into things. I'm pretty sure Florida didn't play last weekend. So I think that means that their coach also had a bye week, if I'm correct. So yeah, it's a good point that, Terry Smith was kind of just thrown right into the fire of, hey, it's a game week and you're going to Kinnick for a night game. Not that it gets any easier with, having number 1 and number 2 back-to-back weeks, but yeah, at least having that bye week. And as you alluded to, Tim, there's a super secret offense that they're working on. And I guess it's kind of where we can start. Do we have like any like inkling ideas of what it could be, right? We think back to 2011 when, Jay Paterno broke out the Curtis Drake and Bill Bellin Wildcat QB offense. Do we have any idea what this super secret offense could be?
I'm going to say, I'm thinking Katron Allen's going to be named starting quarterback on Friday, and he's going to be leading the triple option offense in Columbus. I don't know.
I mean, that was my really only idea. Well, one, I was like, Luke Reynolds at one point was a quarterback in high school. So I was like, do they try to do like the Tyler Warren stuff with him? But it's not like Luke Reynolds has exactly been, setting the world on fire this year, that I don't know if you want to like put him, in that spot. And then the other side of things was, okay, you have 2 good running backs. Do you try to do like just a lot of Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, read option stuff? But again, with Nick Singleton, I don't know. Like the only thing that I'll say as far as Nick Singleton goes is last week when they broke out that super secret offense and didn't want to talk about it, I do, if I recall correctly, Terry Smith did say something about like wanting to get Singleton going, right? Like this idea of Katron getting 28 carries and Singleton only getting 6. Like, okay, like yeah, sure, Katron's the better back, but you still like there's clearly still something there with Singleton, or at least there should be, right? He shouldn't be this like unusable. So is that something that they're doing? Jared, do you have any thoughts on what we could see from this offense?
I don't. I know Terry Smith mentioned talking to Scrap Tom Bradley about his experience as interim coach. So maybe just like a conversation on how he was able to help Penn State beat Ohio State in 2011 with the Wildcat and kind of catch him off guard. So I don't know. I would guess they were going to throw in like a triple option package in there just to kind of, that's kind of a good upset special type offense to run. But I just don't know if they have the personnel for that. So
I asked you guys about your
I really don't have any good guesses, honestly.
Yeah. I asked you guys about your excitement level. And I will say, like, there's a part of me that I guess is like, I don't know, like it's the last Penn State game out of Ohio State for, I think, the foreseeable future, at least the scheduled future. So that was a big reason why I wanted to go. I still have friends that live in Columbus, so it kind of just makes it easier. But it is going to be weird. Like, I went to the game in 2019 when Penn State was, a one-loss team going against, the Justin Fields-led Ohio State teams. And then 2023 when I really thought that Penn State was going to win. So it's going to be weird going to this game where Penn State is, 20 and a half point underdogs and just kind of being okay with, I guess, whatever happens. I mean, I certainly don't want to see them get blown out. But as you guys, your excitement level on a scale 1 to 10, what do we think the chances are? I don't want to say that they pull the upset, but that this is a one-score game in the fourth quarter, or it's competitive in the fourth quarter, right? Even if it's not one score, if it's like, I don't know, like 23-14 or something like that, right? Like, what do we think of Penn State's actual chances to not get blown out?
I could see that happening, at least entering the fourth quarter that way. But they're going to need a couple of turnovers. They're going to need a couple long, sustain some long drives. Maybe throw some things at Ohio State to get them out of rhythm. So I don't think like it's a foregone conclusion Penn State's going to get blown out. But I could, I could see a scenario where, they do hang tough for a while and just put an incredible effort and, do get a couple breaks go their way. I just think at the end of the day, Ohio State's just a much better team on both lines of scrimmage. And I think they're going to have an easier time moving the ball. And, when you play 4 quarters, eventually that's going to win out. And I just think they'll be able to, get ahead enough that the game won't be in doubt by the fourth quarter. Hopefully not sooner than that, but you never know. If Ohio State does jump out to a 14-0 lead, though, it's going to be a very long day.
Tim?
DJ Dangerous drops 2422 says the once and only time I went to a Penn State game in Columbus, Tom Bradley beat the Buckeyes. Mr. DJ, I don't know if you have plans to go to Columbus this Saturday, but if you haven't already, maybe buy yourself a plane ticket and a game ticket and get your ass over there. So
unfortunately, I think that this Ohio State team is a little bit better than the Luke Pickle-led sanctions.
Yeah, that was a 6-6 Buckeyes team. Maybe 6-7. I can't remember if they lost a bowl game, if they were ineligible. But
I don't even know if they were
being 6-6 that year, which is just a crazy outlier for Ohio State, considering their level of success for since Tressel took over. Really, even going back
legitimately a major outlier. I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but it's like Ohio State has the record for the longest streak of being ranked in the top 25 for at least 1 week, and it's like Ohio State's it goes back to like 1967, and then like the next closest two are like maybe it's like Oklahoma, but it's like 1998, and maybe it's like LSU or something, and it's like 1999. It is ridiculous, just ridiculous how good Ohio State has been really since the 60s. So
it's a 1 hour drive for DJ. All right, you have fewer excuses, my friend. Go find yourself a ticket for the game Saturday and drive over there. I guess you want my on a scale of 1 to 10 on how.
Yes, what are the chances Penn State pulls the upset or keeps it close? I'm not even going to say pull an upset.
We'll say pull the keeps it close. I put this at a 5 or 6. Like, I definitely. Are we going to do score predictions after this, or should I just go ahead?
We can just jump into score predictions. I honestly,
So my score prediction, I have 27-16 Ohio State, and that's in part predicated. I predicated on Penn State keeping this close, into the fourth quarter, having, I guess you can say, a puncher's chance of stealing it, but. Ohio State just comes up with, per usual, just a couple big plays here and there. And, that will ultimately seal the deal. I think Jared alluded to it when he was talking about it, but very important that Penn State does not find themselves in an early 10-0, 14-0 hole, because I would think Ohio State being a 3-touchdown favorite, they're going to want to throw a couple early haymakers and just try to knock Penn State to the canvas before they have a chance to get up and punch back. I kind of like it. Jared and I are similar age, but the old Nintendo game, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, we get to Mike Tyson and the final boss, and literally the first minute and a half is just Mike Tyson throwing uppercut after uppercut. You have to dodge him, and you get hit just one uppercut, you're down on the canvas, So it's going to be like that in the beginning, like the first quarter. But if Penn State can weather that storm, if it's still, within 7 points, or heck, if even tie game or Penn State has a lead, then, it's game on. It could very well be an interesting one for 4 quarters. But
I think Penn State's going to get completely blown out. I had it 42-7. I don't even think it's them not caring, because as far as teams that fire their head coaches and then just kind of quit on the season, I don't even think it's necessarily quitting, but it's just a reality of the situation of what this is. This is a tough stretch, man, right? You lose your coach, you go to Iowa, then you have number 1 Ohio State on the road, knowing that you have number 2 Indiana next week. This is a tough stretch, and for as competitive as these guys are, I don't know. I think it's asking a lot to go into Ohio State and to keep this competitive. And I mean, just frankly, this is a really good Ohio State team. Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, who the best receivers in the country, if not, I think Ryan Williams and Bama probably events them from being the best receivers, but it's certainly right. Jeremiah Smith very well could be the best. I don't get the sense that this is going to be Ohio State not being locked in, Ohio State kind of overlooking Penn State of anything of that sort. Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator, I'm telling you, Ryan Day he's gonna remember that. He's gonna care. He's going to try to run this up if he can. And I think that opportunity is going to be presented to him. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be 63-14 like it was, back in the day, back in 2013, I think that was, right? But I certainly see Ohio State kind of extending themselves and eventually pouring it on and winning pretty comfortably. So I have it 42-7. Jared?
Hey, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm 31-10. So I think Katron Allen wills himself to a touchdown somehow, some way. So I'm only seeing two scoring drives all day. Obviously, Ohio State's defense is just so good. I don't know if you guys looked at their numbers. They're giving up 219 yards per game, total yards per game, 5.8 points per game, both first in the nation, which is no surprise. So they're just really good at all 3 levels. And then I'll give Patricia a lot of credit, because, I mean, they do such a good job of disguising what they're going to do. You don't know who's dropping into coverage. You don't know where the pressure's coming from. And then they use Caleb Downs just really all over the field. So when you've got a really inexperienced quarterback on the road and going against a defense like that, it's just – you need a lot of things to really go your way to have a chance.
That's what I mean. And that's something that I did want to say was just – I would be borderline shocked if Ohio State doesn't get a pick 6 or a fumble recovery for a touchdown or something, some sort of defensive score. It just feels like Caleb Downs out there and just the back 7 that they have. And honestly, man, at this point, even their defensive line is still pretty damn good going against a green quarterback in Ethan Grunkmeyer. I don't know what Grunk will end up being. I do know that he's not going to show his best in the stretch of Iowa, Ohio State. We'll see when we get to Indiana, but I if you were to tell me what is more likely, that Gronk throws 2 touchdowns or he throws 2 pick 6s, I would say he probably throws 2 pick 6s. But
yeah, the one thing too, I'm really kind of concerns me is Ohio State's. I mean, first of all, I thought he's been phenomenal this year. I know he doesn't really throw downfield as much as some of the other recent Buckeyes quarterbacks have, but you could tell he just has a great feel for the game and really knows how to read a defense, because he can just take what the defense has given him and just find the soft spots and find the open zones and get the ball there. I think he's completing 80% of his passes this season. And really his worst games were early in the year against Grambling and Ohio when he was just starting out. And he's just gotten better and better with each week. And obviously he's got a lot of weapons around him too.
Great offensive coordinator too. Great offensive coordinator they got over there.
Exactly. Another thing to consider is when you look at how Penn State's linebackers have just really struggled since Rojas went down. I mean, there's a lot of potential to find mismatches there when you think of all the athleticism on Ohio State's offensive side of the ball. So I'm sure they'll be drawing some things up to take advantage of that. And wouldn't be surprised if the offense Ohio State's offense just kind of goes off and scores a bunch of points in a hurry and puts this game away.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be much of a game. If I'm even sitting in the stands at halftime and Penn State's only down, one score, I'll be pretty surprised. But I'm interested to see like what the fan situation is like, just because the last 2 times I went, I'll say this: Ohio State fans aren't the nicest people in the world. Not the nicest people in the world. And maybe I'm not the nicest Penn State fan either, but I just comparatively, I went to Michigan in 2014 when Michigan was having a bad year. Penn State, beginning of the Franklin era, obviously wasn't that great. And I didn't get anything, but I think that was partly because Michigan was down. That they're like, okay, we're not gonna talk crap. So I don't know. Maybe a lame Penn State comes in and Ohio State fans will be a little bit nicer, but we'll see about that. Any final thoughts on games?
I just want to say how wild it is that not too long ago we were thinking about this as a very highly likely 1 versus 2 matchup at one point not too long ago. And I mean, if that was the case, that may have been like the biggest Penn State regular season game since we've been, following the team. So it's just incredible that we've gotten here. We don't need to beat a dead horse or anything, but just kind of what we're anticipating this game to be and what the realities turned out to be has just been it's quite jarring.
What was Penn State's last win? Was September 20th. That was Penn State's last win. Mm-hmm. Crazy. It's crazy that we're here on October 29th. I tweeted last night, I'm a Sixers fan, as I've mentioned before. Sixers are 4-0 this year. If you would have told me the Sixers got their 4th win before Penn State got their 4th win, I legitimately would not. Yeah. I would have been like, oh, I'm dreaming, or it's a nightmare, or whatever it might be.
This will put in perspective. We're going to go to November. Penn State and Kent State will have the same amount of wins.
Yeah, sad state of affairs. Sad state of affairs. Tim, any last thoughts on the game? Are we doing a talk coaching search?
Well, let's just talk coaching search, especially since there's a certain offensive coordinator at Ohio State whose name has been heating up amongst the coaching rumors on the internets, as a former president would say. Brian Hartline, current longtime wide receivers coach in his first year as the offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, but he's a guy he's interviewed for a couple of jobs in recent times. I think last year he interviewed for West Virginia and, was one of the finalists for that, along with Andy Kotelnicki, which is a weird thing to say now, but
I don't think Kotelnicki's getting any head coaching jobs this offseason.
No, not unless it's like, some high school team in Kansas or something. But Hartline also interviewed with a Cincinnati job a couple of years before going to Scott Satterfield, and supposedly when Chip Kelly left UCLA in February of last year, and the Bruins are kind of scrambling to get somebody, the rumor is that Hartline interviewed for that, and if UCLA brass weren't such cheapskates, they probably would have made him the hire instead of going with Deshaun Foster. But but he's a name that's been heating up, and frankly, I like it. I know people are going to look at, the guy doesn't have head coaching experience, he's an elite recruiter and all. He's developed some great wide receivers and has really upped the wide receiver recruiting ever since he took over that position several years ago. But he has no head coaching experience, never run a program before, and this is his first year actually even calling plays. How's this ever going to work out? But I'd also counter with, look at Dan Lanning, look at Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Marcus Freeman. None of them had prior head coaching experience before, assuming their current positions. Heck, you can just looking internally at Penn State. Before James Franklin, the last two head coaches, Bill O'Brien, Joe Paterno, neither of them had prior head coaching experiences. And I'd say both of them turned out pretty good, for the
even just looking at the top 25, right? Ohio State, Ryan Day was the offense coordinator. Indiana, Kirk Cignetti was a Group of 5 head coach. Texas A&M, Elko was at Duke. Alabama, obviously, they're a little bit of an outlier getting DeBoer. But Georgia, defensive coordinator. Oregon had a defensive coordinator. Ole Miss, it was Lane Kiffin from Florida Atlantic. Georgia Tech was an offensive line coach. Brent Key, internal hire. Vanderbilt was a defensive coordinator. BYU, Satake, I believe, is at Oregon State as a defensive coordinator. So, I know you mentioned, the Marcus Freemans and Dan Lannings and that stuff, but it even goes beyond that. Texas Tech, Joey McGuire, he was an outside linebacker coach.
Absolutely.
I think people really, this is a bigger picture than just even Brian Hartline thing, but people get really hung up on the next hire needs to be better than James Franklin. If the goal was to hire a coach that is clear and obvious upgrade over James Franklin, who knows if we even could fire the guy that's kind of the point. All these coaches are not great coaches until they're put in opportunities to prove that they're great coaches, right? Marcus Freeman was defensive coordinator at Cincinnati, which was a Group of 5 at the time, 370 days before he got the Notre Dame gig. Right? Dan Lanning at Georgia, right? Running Kirby Smart's defense, right? The same way that Brian Hartline is running, Brian Day's offense. So these coaches, great coaches are born from great opportunity. And it's kind of unfair to say, well, Franklin did this, Franklin did that. What has this coach done that even compares to that? It's okay, well, those coaches, whether it's Brian Hartline or whether it's Matt Rule or whether it's Matt Campbell or whether it's Jeff Brom or whoever, right? They haven't had the resources that James Franklin has had. So I think we need to get away from the comparing the resumes with James Franklin because, hey, James Franklin was a great coach. He has a tremendous resume. The reason he was fired, it wasn't just simply because he lost big games. It's also the trajectory of the program and where it's headed. And I don't want to, dive too far into that, but just some of the recruiting misses, some of the philosophical ideas of what this program should be clearly weren't aligning. So you need to get out of your heads James Franklin has won, 10 games. It needs to be better than that. Okay, they want it to be better than that, but you're hiring a coach based on projections, not necessarily just based on what they had done. Because who had a grand slam hire who hired someone who won 11 games, 10 games, 12 games? LSU when they hired Brian Kelly, and that clearly did not work out. So, Jared, your thoughts on Brian Hartline, though?
I can't say for certain if he's a viable candidate, but I definitely think he should for the reasons that you guys have said. I mean, there's 3 active coaches who won national titles, and all 3 of them were coordinators prior to becoming the head coaches at their current spots where they won. You just kind of look at the success rate of some of these other guys who've been in championship systems and what they've been able to do once they had the head coaching opportunity. And I think Hartline's done a tremendous job. Everyone I know is a Buckeyes fan just absolutely adores him and just thinks he's just a phenomenal, obviously he's done a phenomenal job with the wide receiver group and with the offense and everything. So he would be very high on my list, especially when you consider some of the head coaching candidates, and not that saying that there's not necessarily a good pool, but to your point, the head coach would just basically be someone who would say, well, if they did either, 8-9 wins here, then they can take us to a national title. So you're kind of taking that big leap of faith regardless. So I don't see why you would just limit yourself to someone with the head coaching experience and take a look at Hartline. And I don't know if Will Stein's a viable candidate or not, but someone like him too, should be on the short list as well.
Yeah, and to be clear, having previous head coaching experience isn't a bad thing. It doesn't prevent someone from success. I just think this idea of he needs to have head coach experience. That is where I shouldn't say other than cultural fit, because I think that is important, as we have seen with Brian Kelly and LSU, for example. Although I will say Brian Kelly has a lot greater issues than just his fit, because I don't know, a-holes tend to not fit anywhere at the end of the day. But right, I just think that, like, again, you don't want to, like, the same idea of like the Lakers giving Kobe Bryant a max extension when he was like 34. Like, okay, maybe not the greatest idea when Kobe just tore his Achilles and you're paying him, whatever it was at the time, $40 million because he's, a 12-time All-Star. It's like, well, he might not be a 12-time All-Star after this. I know coaches are a little bit different because it's, they're not athletes and they have a longer shelf life, but kind of even like the same idea with like Brian Kelly. It's easy to look back in retrospect now and be like, maybe hiring the 60-year-old guy wasn't the smartest idea, because for as much as I'm saying, oh, Brian Kelly, 60-year-old guy, then you have a Kurt Signetti. Main point being, there is no like, oh, check. Like, this is not a science. It is completely random. And unfortunately, it's going to be some things that we're not privy to, right? Like, how do the interviews go? How, like, things like that we're just not going to know about. So yeah, I really like Brian Hartline. I've liked Hartline from the beginning, even after can't remember if it was after the Oregon game or after the UCLA game that I made my first original hot board. I think it was the UCLA game, but I did have Hartline on there. I just kind of think about it, like, even from like outside the Penn State sphere. Like, I think like if Notre Dame opened, or if Michigan State opened, or Michigan, or Rutgers, or Maryland, or Virginia Tech, right? Like, who would I not want them to hire? And for the last couple of years, it's been Brian Hartline. So I think that kind of shows, at least, that it's not just like this Penn State fan fiction of like, he recruits really well at Ohio State, that means he's going to recruit just as well here. I think that he can kind of would be able to recruit well anywhere. So,
and he could recruit some 5-star receivers too.
Yes. No, and that's the other side, like this whole coaching search. What plays like a big part in it, I think, at least for me, but I think for Pat Kraft as well, is like kind of where was Penn State struggling? It was with the offense, wide receivers in particular, but right, quarterback play and things like that. Not that, I mean, Trace was a good quarterback. Sean Clifford was a good college quarterback. Even Drew Aller certainly had good moments, but it never felt like Penn State was getting the most out of their quarterbacks and getting the most out of their offense. So it's like, let's try something a little bit more exciting. So I think Hartline is somebody that could potentially bring that, just coming from the Ryan Day offense. And honestly, just someone who brings in the excitement, like personality wise. Like, I'm not greatly concerned with like winning the press conference, but I think he's someone who can get the fan base, excited a little bit. So Matt Rule, by the way, obviously continually mentioned for the Penn State job. There's some murmurs out there on the internet that he will be signing an extension with Nebraska. What are our thoughts on Matt Rule? I know we're not generally big fans, but what do we think about Nebraska extending Matt Rule?
I'm not certain how I feel about that. I feel like it feels a little bit like 2021 when Penn State had a pretty terrible end of the season. They finished 2-5. But at the same time, there was rumors that Franklin may be going to USC, maybe going to LSU. And I feel like Penn State panicked a little bit and gave him a huge extension, right at the end of that season. So I just kind of feel like it's I know Nebraska, their season is going terrible, but I'm assuming they're probably going to have at least another couple losses ahead of them the rest of the way. So it kind of feels like a very similar situation where they're kind of a situation where they're not certain if they necessarily want him to walk away yet. And there might be a little bit of panic there. Because it's not like he's doing a slam dunk job there where they think, we need to extend this guy and lock him down for a long time. And I could also see a situation where he's got a long extension and a huge buyout, and maybe then the next year they say, this isn't working out, and they're kind of the same situation Penn State and LSU are in.
Although I will say, Jared, the one difference between Nebraska, where they were where Penn State was in 2021, is that Penn State wasn't coming off like ending an 8-year bowl drought like Nebraska is. So I think Nebraska fans are probably still on board with Matt Rule and don't want to lose him at this point. I think they're They might probably lose another game or two, but they go 8-4. I mean, it's an improvement on last year even, and probably go to a better bowl game. Of course, expectations are going to start to go further up and starting next year, but that's another conversation. But I think the Nebraska fans won't be, as long as it's not something like what Franklin got, a 10-year, $80 million type extension, that I think they'll be satisfied with it. And, if you're somebody who really, really does not want Matt Rule to be Penn State's next head coach, you're probably also happy to hear this potential news. So, that's all I got to say about it.
Well, I will say a couple things. One, I do believe Matt Rule's already getting paid like $9 or $9.5 million or something crazy like that. Like he's paid more than Franklin is already. So if he's getting an extension, that would lead me to believe that he's gonna break into a higher threshold, which is interesting. Just kind of leave it at that. I'm also interested to see what his buyout is, not what the buyout is if Nebraska fires him, but if he wants to take another job, what that buyout is. Because even like with Cignetti, I think it was originally for him, it was like an $8 or $10 million buyout that the school, whoever would hire him, would have to pay. And it jumped up with this extension to $15 million, which, right, like that doesn't greatly change things. Like if an LSU or a Florida or a Penn State or whoever, like I don't think that buyout part is going to prevent them from trying to get Cignetti. So if this extension comes for Rule, what his buyout would be, because right now it's $5 million. If it jumps up to like $7 million, does that really change things if you're Pat Kraft or Penn State? And even if you're Matt Rule, of like, say, November 29th comes or November 30th comes and Penn State does offer you the job, you can still just jump anyway. So that's the only thing that kind of jumps out to me about this. If it gets signed, again, nothing is official right now. And even like with Franklin's extension, I don't even think that came until towards the end of November anyway. So we'll see if Nebraska announces something to try to get ahead of things. But I get the feeling that this won't be the last that we hear of Matt Rule. And I continue to believe that if Penn State ever comes knocking for Matt Rule, that he will answer that door and answer the call and say, time to go home. But wasn't that Bear Bryant, right, when he was at Texas A&M? I think it was like, why'd you leave A&M for Alabama? And he was like, Mama called, it was time to go home. I think we would see something similar with Matt Rule. Not to say Matt Rule is Bear Bryant, to be very clear, because I have watched more Nebraska football in the last 3 to 4 weeks, ever since it became more apparent that James Franklin was potentially leaving and that he might be a viable candidate for the job. And it is a painful experience. It really feels like watching Penn State in 2015, right down to the good defense, some actual like decently okay options at wide receiver and running back, a super talented quarterback, but one that's also frustrating, and an offensive line that is just absolutely horrible, and play calling that is just so unimaginative that it makes you want to jump off a building. Like
that's a phenomenal comparison, Patrick. I hadn't thought about that, but
everything
that comes out perfectly.
Everything feels so hard and difficult for them. And going back to what I was saying, like with Brian Hartline and a couple other guys, but it's like, what do we want out of this? Like, of course, yes, win a lot of games, win the national championship. But I think it's also bringing in like excitement to the fan base and to the program. And not to say, like, I know there's a lot of fans out there who are acting like Matt Rule is like the scum of the earth, and if Penn State hires him, we're going to go back to like the dark years of like maybe winning 3 or 4 games. I don't think that at all. I think Matt Rule is like a perfectly fine head coach. I think he would actually recruit pretty damn well here. I think he would win games here. I just would not be excited about it. And his brand of football just, to me, isn't exciting. And it goes back to like even the like kind of what James's issue is, and like overall, I think what his overarching issue is, like, what is James Franklin's philosophy, specifically offensively? Like, I'm asking that, like, after 10 years of watching, what was James Franklin's offensive philosophy?
Using a drop back quarterback as a dual threat.
Yeah. Right. It was, we want to have big plays, big explosive plays. We want to be a big explosive offense. We also don't want to turn the ball over. Like, okay, like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do those two things? Like, those are competing things. Not to say that if you're an explosive offense that you have to turn the ball over, but like, right, you got to risk it for the biscuit type thing. Like, and I worry that Matt Rule is kind of the same way, where he knows that it's supposed to be a spread offense and get the ball around and 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers, and that. Yet deep inside of him, Matt Rule, he just wants to run the ball. He wishes that he could just, line up under center, have a fullback, but he knows that's not the way to win. In a weird way, I think Franklin's very similar to that too, where he wants a conservative offense that, slowly but surely breaks the defense and is able to score in the red zone and stuff like that. But yet he knows that's not how it's supposed to go. So I know that we've like made the jokes about Matt Rule being just like, central PA version of James Franklin, but
James Franklin is a term I use.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's watching Nebraska, it really, really does feel like those early Franklin years, which I don't know. We'll see what Nebraska does the rest of the way.
John Butler's a defensive coordinator too, former Penn State.
Yeah. No,
former beloved Penn State defensive coordinator, John Butler.
Lots of ties. In John Butler's defense, I don't think John Butler was as bad as we made him out to be when you consider that, he dealt with the sanctions as well. And it wasn't exactly like, I think it was just like the stark contrast from like the Tom Bradley defenses.
Right. And I mean, I did defend Butler for most of the season. So
we were so spoiled by great defenses for so long, and really have been said. So it was very jarring to see just the defensive side of the ball be a weakness, and teams moving the ball a bit easier than they had. But it wasn't the best era of defense for Penn State, that's for sure.
No. And to be clear, I don't think he would, if Matt Rule got the Penn State job, I don't know if he would take John Butler with him, but that's a discussion for another day, if that day were to ever come. LSU and Florida opened up. Their main focus from all reports will be Lane Kiffin. I've seen some discussion about like, oh, this is a bad year for Penn State to get into the coaching surge because now you have Florida open, you have LSU open. I think like very much consensus, LSU is a better job than Penn State. There's some discussion back and forth on, Florida, Penn State, which one's better, even just call it even. But right, I don't disagree that yes, in an ideal world, Penn State would be far and away the best job open and boom, like keep it real simple and easy. Do we think that LSU and Florida opening is going to greatly cause a big issue for Penn State to get the candidate that they want, whoever that may be?
I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue as some people are making it out to be, because I think the list of top candidates is for what Penn State's looking at and what LSU and Florida are looking at are different. Like it's like I get on that Chiron down there. I mean, Lane Kiffin is not a top target for Penn State. I'm sure maybe Pat Kraft reached out to his agent and stuff, but like I'm sure he's casting a wide net. But from what I've gathered, just from the rumors on the internet, I see 3 names right now, 3 realistic names. We'll say, not Mike Elko or Kalen DeBoer, but 3.
Can we talk about that, Tim? Actually, go into Mike Elko and Kalen DeBoer. Why are they not realistic? Because I agree. And
it's not because I don't think they aren't interested in Penn State or that they wouldn't take but timing, because both of them are coaching teams that are on the warpath to a college football playoff berth and could make a deep run into January. So,
and what's the point of leaving a team that is a true national title contender to go somewhere where you have to start
precisely
building back up again, or you're definitely taking a step back in terms of what your current situation is.
Yeah, I understood, right? Like the idea of Kalen DeBoer is if Bama drops 2 more games, which is becoming less likely and less likely. I think Bama is a lot closer to winning the national title than they are to missing the playoff. But right, like if Kalen DeBoer loses 2 more games, right? Say that he lost to South Carolina and say that he lost to Auburn at the end of the year. They're 9-3. Does he try to look at an exit plan? Being that Bama will probably be like, dude, you need to win the national title next year or we're going to fire your ass. I can understand that perspective. Even with Mike Elko, right? Say that Texas A&M is playing hardball with him as far as giving him He's another guy that's going to want an extension. He's only making $7 million. He's definitely going to want, the 11, 12, 13 million that's getting thrown out there nowadays. And say that Texas A&M started playing hardball with him because he finishes the year. Let's not even say 9-3. Let's even just say 10-2. I can understand that of like why some people might think like, oh, Penn State could be an option for Mike Elko. Penn State could be an option for Kalen DeBoer. Texas A&M is going to give Mike Elko $28 million. Like this is the highest
pockets,
the highest that Texas A&M has ever been. Like within the last 25 years. I know they had some good years in the 90s and back with R.C. Slocum, I think was the coach. But right, like as far as like my era of like going back 20 years, like Texas A&M, being 8-0, I think they are, being ranked number 3, having an inside track to be playing in the SEC championship game. Like Mike Elko isn't even going to have to play hardball at Texas A&M. He's not going to have to use Penn State as leverage. They will give him whatever he wants. And yeah, like you were saying, Jarrett, like I can understand doing the Brian Kelly thing of, I've been at this place for 8 or 9 years or whatever it was when Kelly left. Let me start over, try somewhere else. Elko's only in year 2 at Texas A&M. This isn't even, what he probably thinks is going to be peak, Elko, Texas A&M. So I just don't see it.
I don't think we should really consider them as viable at all. I think for either one of them to even have a snowball's chance in hell, that they would have to really want out of that situation. You can make the argument, okay, maybe there's a scenario where DeBoer just does not want to be the person to follow Saban anymore. And just really wants to get out for whatever reason, or Elko, really wants to be closer to home. But I mean, I don't think either of those things are really likely options where it would be that much of a yearning to leave because of those off the field issues, and come to Penn State. So yeah, I don't see them either of those candidates. I think they'll both be coaching into January. Probably late January. They both might be coaching up until January 19th. So, I think we could probably scratch them off the list unless something really wild happens.
Yeah, the timeline just doesn't match up, and Penn State needs someone in. Like I've even heard and this will bring us back to kind of what we were talking about with LSU and Florida and Lane Kiffin. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, just go back to what I was saying. There's the 3 candidates that I'm seeing that seem to be getting the most traction with Penn State right now are Brian Hartline, Jeff Brom, and Eli Drinkwitz. And I haven't seen anything on LSU or Florida end about them going after Hartline. Maybe a little bit with Florida and Brom, but Drinkwitz is the only one of those names that's also heavily in the mix for LSU and Florida. So I don't think it affects Penn State as much as you might think.
Yeah. And here's like the interesting thing, like I was going to talk about the timeline of what happens if Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin make the playoff. Like it's easy to say, okay, a couple different timelines. One, National Signing Day, early National Signing Day is the first week of December. That probably doesn't greatly matter for Penn State at this point. Like half the class is basically decommitted.
Isn't it mid-December, Pat? Hold on, National.
It's like December. I want to say it's like December 6th.
Did they move?
You can check.
You're right.
Yeah.
I must have. Oh, December. Yeah, opens December 3rd, closed.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wrong.
It used to be like December 18th, 19th.
Okay, that's where I got confused. Yeah. I didn't know they moved it up.
They pushed it back up. Anyway, so right. Ideally, you get someone in, and they have a couple days to try to salvage the class. But all in all, I think Penn State's basically going to be punting on a 2026 class or a meaningful 2026 class. The more important date is January 2nd. That is when the portal opens for everyone. Penn State absolutely needs a head coach in by then, not only to preserve what Penn State has as a team to make sure that 75%, because if Penn State doesn't have a coach on December 31st, every single player is going to go into that portal. And right on, why should they stay around and wait for a coachless team? But January 2nd is important because, keep the players that you want to keep, try to, stop the damage as much as possible, but then also to be ready to be ready in the portal and get guys from all these different schools that will be entering. There is a difference this year, and it was a rule that just came into effect like 20 days ago, that once Penn State makes their hire, the coach will have 5 days, a 5-day grace period, which then after that 5-day grace period, then Penn State players could jump in. So I had originally thought that it was, Penn State players were stuck here until January 2nd. That's not technically true, right? Say that they were to hire, let's say they hire Brian Hartline on November 30th. It'd be 5 days after that, Penn State players would be allowed to jump into the portal. I still think that January 2nd date is probably the most important, but getting a coach in that first week of December is going to be important because this isn't a video game where you just turn it on and you put the points, I'm going to put 40 points to this recruit, 50 points to this recruit. You need the coach on campus with these players. And if Penn State misses a bowl game and they hire someone that say that Penn State tried to hire Lane Kiffin and he loses in the first round of the playoff and they hire him the day after, December 22nd, December 23rd. Say that Penn State misses a bowl game. They're not on campus. How is Lane Kiffin going to re-recruit the entire goddamn roster while no one's even there? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it certainly is not ideal. So in an ideal world, you hire someone November 30th, December 1st. They have those 5 days with the players on campus, being in Lash, being around them, re-recruiting in person, which I think is going to be important. But anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying Lane Kiffin, if LSU and Florida kind of get into a pissing contest of sorts over Lane Kiffin, see who can get him, and Ole Miss makes the playoff, and Lane tells both of them, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm open to leaving, but my focus right now has to be on Ole Miss, but I am open to leaving. Do both of those schools wait until December 21st, December 22nd to see what happens with Lane? Is he that much of a coach that they want? That could help Penn State. That absolutely could help Penn State because, as Tim mentioned, right, Eli Drinkwitz might be Florida's backup option. He might be number 3, number 4 on LSU's board, just throwing out random stuff. Mm-hmm. But if Eli Drinkwitz on November 30th has an offer from Penn State, he's likely going to take that offer from Penn State. He's not going to wait for LSU. So in a weird way, I almost feel like this LSU and Florida being open and both of them, just going gung-ho at Lane Kiffin almost helps Penn State because in the same way that it's in recruiting, who's showing you the most interest? If Penn State and Pat Kraft make, Eli Drinkwitz or Jeff Brom or whoever, they're clear number one target. We want you. Please sign on the dotted line. Are you really going to wait 3 weeks to see if Florida or LSU will give you the job? I don't know. So we'll see.
I should just add a disclaimer. I meant to do this before, but I am not an insider. I don't know a guy who knows a guy who's close to Pat Kraft. I mean, this is when I said those 3 candidates that Penn State seems to be honing in on. That was just based on my reading of the tea leaves from those rumors of the internet. Just to make that clear.
No, and that's an important thing to say as well, that I know Penn State fans are getting a little restless with not having a coach because we've never been a part of a coaching search that is going to take this long. But I would be shocked if Penn State makes a hire prior to November 30th, which is the Sunday after the season. I think that's when – I'm not saying that there won't be rumors in the lead up to that game of Penn State has zeroed in on, but the idea that Penn State's going to make the hire on November 10th and just using Eli Drinkwitz as an example. Penn State's not going to hire Eli Drinkwitz on November 10th. Eli Drinkwitz is not leaving Missouri in the in the middle of the regular season. I know that even we can say 30 years ago, the idea of coaches leaving teams for bowl games, like Brian Kelly. I know we keep mentioning Brian Kelly, but when Brian Kelly left Cincinnati when they were about to play in the Sugar Bowl to go coach at Notre Dame, I know that in the 80s or 90s would have never, people would be that would never happen. The coach would never leave before playing in the Sugar Bowl. So I do understand that college football is changing, the timelines are changing, and it probably makes more sense for if you're a coach and you're taking this Penn State job, get started as soon as possible. I just have a tough time, I don't want to say morally, but morally having, if you're Eli Drinkwitz, how can you recruit anyone, especially in this NIL era? How can you recruit anyone to Penn State or to whatever school, to LSU, to Florida, when they know that you literally quit in the middle of the regular season on your previous school? So I think we still have a lot of time left in this. I think there's a lot of games left to be played as far as Jeff Brom and Louisville.
We got a full month left. Let's just say.
See what Matt Rule does, see what Matt Campbell does, see how the Ohio State offense looks. So yeah, I think right now, right, if we were betting people, I am in agreement with you, Tim. I feel like the Eli Drinkwitz would probably be my pick. I think Jeff Brom is hanging around there. But yeah, I mean, who truly knows? And Brom also has an interesting background of, he's from Louisville originally. His dad was a high school coach, coaching legend in the city of Louisville. He played at Louisville. He's now, only in his third season back at his alma mater. So it's not like a definite shoe-in that Penn State offers Brom the job and he takes it. But we'll see where this all goes. This is the fun of
it's October 29th. Like you said, it's going to be probably just over a month before a coach is actually hired. So there's going to be a lot of twists and turns along the way.
Yeah. I am incredibly hot, by the way. I just want to point that out there. So if I do pass out at some point, I'm trying to keep the hood on for the aesthetic, but it is toasty in this hot dog.
I didn't realize
we're all trying to find the guy who did this.
What was that, Tim?
We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
Yes, we are. Shout out Tim Robinson. James Franklin to Virginia Tech, maybe. We're not sure. Once again, some rumors on the internet that James Franklin and Virginia Tech are in deep discussions for James to be the next head coach of the Hokies. What are our initial thoughts on James maybe going to Virginia Tech? Are we surprised?
I'm a little surprised just because with so many openings, I would be really surprised if he signs this early with someone, especially Virginia Tech. I just think he'd kind of hold out and kind of see, what his opportunities are, unless he already knows that, LSU, Florida, and some of these other schools aren't necessarily going to be don't have any interest. But I mean, there's still the possibility of Auburn, Florida State opening up. So I don't know. I just don't see him jumping at the bits to go to Virginia Tech, honestly, especially this early in the game.
Yeah, I'm with Jared. I'd be surprised if he just immediately jumped at the Tech job, and also just, I don't know, you guys maybe read these rumors too, and it is that supposedly his wife didn't like State College, Central PA. I mean, she doesn't like Central PA. I mean, she is definitely not going to like living in rural Southwest Virginia either. And plus, I think he owns a house in Florida. So Florida State could very well be opening up by the end of the season. So, and of course, like Auburn, maybe UNC, just there's going to be a few other jobs you could see him legitimately also being at that could open up soon. So it'd be a little strange if he's, be so quick to make it official with the Hokies, but we'll see. I
do think it would be a really, really good hire for Virginia Tech to be very clear. Just put my hot dog costume back on. I do think it would be a really good hire for Virginia Tech. I question what exactly is Virginia Tech in this era, right? 20 years ago, I mean, Virginia Tech was, I think, pretty comfortably a top 20 job, if not a top 15 job even. And now I don't even know where it lies in the ACC. So let's just go through these ACC schools. You can tell me if you think Virginia Tech is a better job. Miami.
No.
Florida State.
No.
Nope.
No.
Clemson.
No. Hell no.
North Carolina?
No.
I think, and UNC's got, I think they have a little more money to throw around compared to Tech, so no.
Yeah. SMU?
Yeah, maybe not now, honestly. I think SMU's got some pretty deep pockets, so.
In the NIL era,
yes.
No, I'd say SMU is the better program now.
So I do think, this is the funny thing when we talk about, right, Penn State, Florida, what's a better job? So many of these, and even Penn State, LSU, it's so subjective. I think James Franklin would do a better job at Virginia Tech than he would do at SMU. James is pretty, actually, I think he could fit in a lot of different places. I think Texas is probably one of the few that I can't see James, cowboy boots, cowboy hat, doing that whole thing. So I do think Virginia Tech would be better for James, but I think in the grand scheme, I think SMU is at this point, the better program, which once again, 20 years ago, imagine saying that in the heyday Frank Beamer, that SMU is is a better job. So that's 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 that we clearly have better. What about Louisville?
I'd say it's better than Louisville.
Yeah. NC State?
It's
I
close.
mean, Louisville's probably had more consistent success than Tech in the last decade or so, but I'd say maybe they're about even.
Yeah. What about NC State?
Probably better than NC State.
I'd say I'd probably put Tech slightly ahead of NC State.
They seem like they have a pretty low ceiling.
So yeah, I had those first 5: Miami, Florida State, SMU, North Carolina, and Clemson as better jobs, and then I think you can make an argument for Virginia Tech around the North Carolina, SMU area. I think the Florida State, Miami, Clemson are in a tier of their own. But right, so Virginia Tech is around the 6th best job in the ACC. I think a potentially important part of this isn't so much James tying himself to the ACC, but seeing big picture, what is this sport going to be? And if a Florida State opens, I think that would almost be like the best spot for him, because it's okay, you can just run roughshed over the ACC. Also knowing that Florida State's not going to get left behind in all this. Whenever the TV contract is up, Florida State will be in the Big Ten or they will be in the SEC. Like, they're a big enough program that they're just not going to get forgotten about. I do wonder where Virginia Tech is 10 years from now. Not that James has to greatly care about that, right? He's 53, I believe. So we'll see how long he truly coaches for. But
And if you think about Virginia Tech, really, I mean, you mentioned, 20 years ago, a Beamer ball where they were a contender, for a short stretch at least, but they really only had one era of successful football, because prior to that, Tim, you may remember this, like mid to late 90s. I remember they beat up on Texas and Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, one of those bowls. And at the time, they were almost kind of seen as like an Indiana kind of like program that was, rose from the ashes. And
who was their court? Jim Druckenmiller, I think was his name.
Yes, yeah, it was a first-round pick to the Niners. Yep. So I mean, really, they really weren't anything to write home about before that, and really since then they've been pretty inconsistent and have some pretty down years. So
I mean, really, the Michael Vick.
I don't think they're
Vick
sleeping
kind of
giants.
vaulted them to national prominence in the first place.
And really, they made one national title appearance, and if they didn't have Michael Vick, who is a once-in-a-generation college quarterback, then they weren't going to make it that year.
And that's kind of where like they are as a program. I mean, even now, especially in the NIL era, of they don't have a ton of investment. I know that it came out a couple of weeks ago that they're going to start throwing a little bit more money as like just in athletics in general, with NIL getting a good share of that. But I still think they're middle of the pack ACC. They have an outgoing AD, by the way, like that. I think that's an interesting part of all this, where James, has always talked about alignment and how he said like he almost wishes he didn't take the Penn State. He wouldn't have taken the Penn State job at the time if he knew what was going on with the administration as far as having an acting AD and a new AD coming in and all this stuff. So I do think that's like an interesting part for James to consider. One, whether he actually cares about that, and that was just like one of the excuses he was using, or two, if he wants to see if he can influence that decision. Can he get an AD, maybe someone that he's friends with or knows, and can he bring them into Virginia Tech to basically have someone that will do a lot of the fundraising and NIL stuff that I don't think James particularly loves to do. But he'd be a pain. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to point out an interesting tweet here from Ben Jones, former Penn State beat writer, saying if James Franklin ends up at Virginia Tech, the second game of his tenure would be against Ricky Ronnie at Old Dominion. And he would also face Notre Dame at a home and home in years 2 and 3 against his old pal, Marcus Freeman.
Good times. Lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? He will be a pain for Penn State because, and I think that is right. One of the notable reasons why he's not really being mentioned for LSU, he's not being mentioned for Florida, which is crazy. All these people that were crying that Penn State fired James and it was so unfair, and this guy has done incredible stuff, but yet he's not being talked about for Florida or LSU.
That's really kind of surprised me last week or two when I, just his mentions really dried up for some of these jobs.
Yeah, it's interesting. Penn State was totally wrong to fire him, but yet he is maybe having to settle for a middle of the pack ACC job. Just saying, but I think he would recruit, pretty damn well there. I think that he would take a good portion of Penn State's, commits and even roster. I don't know if it'd be tough to put a number on it. I'm not saying it'd be 30 players or something like that, but I do think that he would get a good portion to, come on down to Virginia Tech. And I think that he would win pretty quickly, which, man, if Penn State hires Matt Rule and Matt Rule goes 7-5 next year, while James goes 9-3 at Virginia Tech, I don't know. I don't want to be part of that, but I do think it would be definitely a successful hire for Virginia Tech if they're able to swing that. But who's James Franklin's agent? I can't remember.
Jimmy Sexton.
Jimmy Sexton. That's right. Just something to remember when it comes to anything. James Franklin.
Sexton, get a Sexton.
Always just get Jimmy on the phone. Let's get my name out there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I am in agreement that I don't think James is. Yes, it'd be nice, I'm sure, in an ideal world, right? If it was a job that he really wanted, starting now would be perfect because you could just start recruiting. But I have a tough time thinking that James is going to settle for Virginia Tech in October when we have all of November, and who knows what other jobs could potentially.
He's made clear his goals to win a national title. I mean, every coach's goal is that to an extent, but I think he's going to hold out and find a better opportunity with that where that's much more likely than Virginia Tech.
Yeah, that's why it baffles me to see there's all this smoke with Franklin and Tech if your goal is to win a national title, because I just don't see it happening at Virginia Tech.
All right, before we go on to our game predictions for 3 big games this week, which not a great week, by the way, just as a heads up. We're going to do this every Wednesday. I'm going to ask you, who do you want to be head coach and who do you think? What is your prediction right now? So maybe it's something that changes over time. Who do you want? Who do you not want? Who we're predicting? So I can start us off. I want Jeff Brom. And again, realistic. We're not going to say Kellen DeBoer, Mike Elko. Jeff Brom would be number 1 for me. I think that we pick Eli Drinkwitz. Or I think Eli Drinkwitz eventually gets the Penn State job because he annoys me and I find him to be a bit of a whiny baby. And I just know that is what's meant for me in life, is to always just be passively aggressively annoyed at the Penn State head coach for the dumb comments that he makes in press conferences. Eli Drinkwitz turned off replies on his tweet the other day. Are you kidding me, dude? Are you kidding me? Come on. This guy's locked in to be Penn State's head coach. He's going to do that after his 5th loss to Ohio State in about 6 years, and I can't wait. So Jeff Brom's who I want, and Eli Drinkwitz is my pick.
I'd say Brom is also who I would want.
Dude, you guys everyone's a Brom sexual now. I started the Brom thing, for the record. I was the first.
He's got, I want some. He's got a pulse. He can win big games. I mean, I look at his record, but he has a pretty solid record against top 10 teams. Which is, something that was lacking in the, recently departed head coach. So, and I liked what he did at Purdue prior to Louisville. I mean, that was a
Big Ten championship
program that was really down in the dumps post Joe Tiller. And he put together, bunch of 7, 8 win season. I think even a 9-win season in there at one point. Got guys like David Bell, stud receiver who, to play for him. And so, people say, oh, he may not be the best recruit, but you know what? You give him the resources and NIL money he's going to have to work with at Penn State. I think he can fix that rather quickly. I want Brom. I think it's going to be Brian Hartline.
Okay. So we have a Hartline. We have a Drinkwitz. We're both on Brom. Jarrett, are you a Brom sexual as well? Or
I do like him. If the person I want the most, I would say, is Mike Elko. Just really wanting to return to the region. The New Jersey guy. But if we're gonna go actual viable candidates, I think I'm actually gonna go with Hartline, because I just feel like he's got the highest ceiling, and I'm just trying to think of the enthusiasm meter, where I think someone like him can come in and you could really start to believe that, this is the guy that could take us over the hump and get us a national title. Where someone like Drinkwitz or Brom or some of those other candidates that we've been discussing, I don't know if they quite have that ceiling where you're going to just like immediately think, yeah, this guy is, I think all those guys are going to take some patience and kind of wait and see what they can do. So I actually think I'm all in on Hartline. As far as who I think, the way this season has gone, I'm going to say Brian Kelly.
Oh, all right.
I actually think that.
Damn, you went there,
It just feels like whatever.
I just muted Jarrett. I muted Jarrett. We're not going to allow that to happen.
I deserve that.
All right.
No, I actually think Brian Kelly is just one of those things where it's just like, what else can go wrong? Then let's just bring Brian Kelly in. I'm just gonna go gut feeling and just say Eli.
Okay. Yeah.
Braum seems somewhat likely, but just the fact that he is a Louisville grad, played for them, and has only been back there for what 3 years now. I don't know. I don't know if I like the timing or not. So
yeah,
I'll just say Eli out of the guys who are likely candidates. That just kind of seems like the most likely pick right now. But again, we're going to be going a lot of twists and turns, and we'll probably have different answers about every week.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Braum's interesting because he's a guy that I feel like generally doesn't really get brought up for jobs. Like even when he was at Purdue, like he was brought up for the Louisville job in 2018 when he turned them down originally. But he's generally not a guy that really gets brought up, which I don't know. Maybe he's clearly a loyal guy. You don't stay at Purdue for 6 seasons if you're not.
And if you can win at Purdue, just kind of looking what they've done before and after him, I mean, they were on quite a different level at the time under him. Yeah. So obviously the guy can really coach.
No, he's just fun.
And he wins big games.
Yeah, and look at Aiden O'Connell and Tyler Shuck Aiden O'Connell started NFL games, and Tyler Shuck is about to start some NFL games. That's all Jeff Braun, baby. If he can do that with those two guys, I just think about the resources that he could potentially have at Penn State and get some top 100 rated QBs and things like that. Could be fun, could be exciting, which is really what I want. Let's pick our games. We're already an hour into this. 3 games are records this year. Tim, you're 9-9. Jarrett, you're 7-11 after a 2-1 week, and I also went 2-1, and now I come in at a hefty 6-12. So Tim still with a comfortable lead, but Jarrett and I have had good weeks. So first game, we'll stick with our good pal Matt Rule. USC goes to Nebraska for a primetime kick on NBC. The Cornhuskers, who will be wearing black shirts. They're 6.5-point underdogs at home. What do we have for this? I will tell you right now, I am taking USC because I've watched Nebraska play football.
I'm taking USC too. I know they don't necessarily always travel well, but I just think offensively, there's a much better chance of USC winning this game by a touchdown or more than Nebraska, staying with them or coming out the win, unless it ends up being a low scoring game. But I just believe in the USC offense a lot more to come out ahead by at least a touchdown.
I think USC wins, but I'm taking Nebraska to cover. I'm thinking like USC by a field goal in this one, but I don't know. USC's defense to me, I don't fully trust them. And yes, I know Nebraska's offense has been like a painful reminder of our own, but I think they can put up some points on this USA defense. So it could be a bit of a shootout-y type of game.
Cincinnati goes to Utah. I believe this is where College Game Day is going to be. This is I believe a 10:30 or 10:15 or 10 o'clock kick, one of those on ESPN. Utah, of course, playing at home, is the favorite, 8.5 for a Cincinnati team that has, I believe they're 7-1. They're ranked this year. Their only loss is to the aforementioned Matt Rule and Nebraska Cornhuskers in the opening game. What are we thinking here?
I'm going Cincy. I love Brandon Sorsby. I think he's the best player no one's talking about in the nation. He's just having a phenomenal year. QB for them, dual threat quarterback that's really just hurting defenses in all kinds of ways. Just been a really special player this year. Cincinnati's been really good. I think if they played Nebraska right now, I think they'd probably beat them by a couple touchdowns. Honestly, that was their only loss, and that was all the way back in week 1. I think it was a Thursday night game heading into the year. So, Cincinnati, I know it's a tough environment, and Utah is coming off couple pretty good weeks here, but I'm a believer in the Cincinnati team, and I'll definitely take them in the points.
Let's see, this is a 10:15 at Eastern Time night kick. Nobody just walks into Rice-Eccles Stadium at night and walks out victorious. Give me the Utes to cover.
I have Cincy as well. 8.5 is just a little bit too rich for my blood. If it was like 6.5, 5.5, I would certainly be riding the Utes, but 8.5, just a little bit too many points. So I will take those. I will take Cincinnati. Big 12. You're going to give me an 8.5 point spread in the Big 12. I'm going to take those points. So we go to the SEC for our last game, and this is how bad the slate is this week. It is not fantastic at all. Ranked Vanderbilt, 7-1 as well, goes to Texas. Texas, a 2.5 point home favorite against Vanderbilt. Can Vanderbilt get a third consecutive ranked win?
I say yes. I'm taking Vandy. I think it's going to be similar to the Vandy-Missouri game for anyone who watched that this past weekend. Low scoring, Texas does have a pretty phenomenal defense. Actually, although they, maybe I shouldn't be saying that after what they gave up to Mississippi State before the Furious comeback. But I do think it could be somewhat low scoring. But Diego has so much Trace McSorley in him where he just makes plays when they really need him to. I don't know how many times where he just kind of grits out a run on 3rd and short, or he's under heavy pressure and just finds a way to escape and find someone downfield. So he's got that magical ability to him. So, and the defense of the Commodores are just so much head and shoulders above what they were last year. So give me Vanderbilt in a somewhat low scoring game, but I like them as the outright winner.
Yeah, Texas is they're on a real shaky foundation right now. They already have 2 losses, including one to Florida.
And I'm assuming Arch is going to be game time decision too, by the way.
Yeah, he's in concussion.
Yeah, that's right. Arch, but so going to the point, they already have 2 losses. You can't afford one more if you want to make the playoff in a year where you were expected to contend for a national title. And they needed a furious 4th quarter rally to avoid losing to Mississippi State last week. And, I think they have another loss or 2 coming still. And Steve Sarkisian is rumored to be poking around at NFL openings now, looking for an escape hatch. So, and now of course, you mentioned the Arch Manning injury. So I don't know. I feel like Vandy's going to come in there and get the dub. And, I'm all aboard the Diego Pavia Express at this point in the season. So give me the Commodores.
I'm Vanderbilt as well. I've watched Texas play football multiple times this year, and I've not once have I been impressed. Not once. So can't survive. They did survive Mississippi State. They survived Kentucky as well, another team that they went to overtime with. I know this is a home game for Texas, but Vandy's just too competent, as crazy as that sounds. Vandy's just too competent. So I like Vandy to at least cover here. So I will take Vandy and the +2.5 points. All right, I forgot to do it on the show, but please, or in the middle of the show, but please subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video if you can. It helps us out a ton. If you're already subscribed, thank you. You're the best. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, give us a 5-star review. Once again, that helps us out with SEO and getting our word out there about us being the only Penn State football YouTube show, podcast, whatever it might be on the internet. So we will, before we go, and once again, probably should have said this, we did record a post-game Iowa show. StreamYard, for whatever reason, it just didn't fully load our videos itself. I have been looking at this on our YouTube currently, so I do know, Tim and Jarrett, that this did go out. So if there's any issues, I'm going to be very angry with StreamYard.
Well, I see we have 9 people viewing, and it got up into the teens at certain points. So obviously it must be hitting YouTube. So, and
we also did have comments too. That's the other thing. But that was the thing. That was the thing with Iowa, though, is we had people that were watching during it. No one commented that they couldn't see us. So I don't know if it was like on the live version we worked. It was just once it processed, it didn't work. But either way, apologies about that. I tried my best to get it back, but we're not just cowards and didn't record once they lost. It truly just didn't work. So we will be back on Saturday for a post-game show after Ohio State. I will not be on it because once again I will be at the game. If Penn State wins, I'll figure out a way to get on from the stadium.
We hope to see you then.
We'll shoot you a link if
I was gonna say
Penn State pulls it off somehow.
I'll come on. I'll scream for 15 seconds and then I'll get off. But all right, we'll see you on Saturday.